What's going on, my creative collective? Welcome to lesson number 6 for A Course in Creativity, based on A Course in Miracles. So this lesson is Postcards from a Fever Dream. I think we're really starting to get to the point where we're realizing how much of the world outside of us that we see and experience is kind of made up. Like it's a little bit made up, um, which is amazing, terrifying and amazing. Amazing because we get to rewrite it the way that, not just suits us, but the way that empowers us and helps others too. So that's the really cool part about this. So the lesson today is from the course. I am upset because I see something that is not there. So I'm upset because I see something that is not there. So good, so good. Further down, so something that's important to keep in mind with this particular lesson is that there's a need for us to pull back and dial it back and understand that we can't hold on to one conflict and one kind of war that we're at internally, right? We can't hang on to anything. All of it disconnects us. All of it is important in that way. So any conflict that we have, any upset, they're all the same because they all disconnect us from that sense of inner peace. And they can also serve to disconnect us from others as well. So it's this sort of important perspective to hold about this. And that's where it kind of got tricky for me while I worked through this one in particular. So in the course, it says, there are no small upsets. This is in lesson 6. There are no small upsets. They are all equally disturbing to my peace of mind. And I cannot keep this form of upset and let the others go. For the purposes of these exercises, then, I will regard them all as the same, which is really important here. It's asking us to really question ourselves about how we're seeing things. What eyes are we seeing through? Are we seeing through our heart space, or are we seeing through the eyes of our expectations and what's happened before, right? If we're not clear on what anything means, then how do we know for sure what something does mean and what the truth of something is? And this is where we get into subjective and objective truths and realities here. Now, subjective truths allow us to function in a way, right? They definitely add a charge to specific situations, though, so it's a little bit more high stakes, right? It's high stakes because until someone buys into that subjective truth, the ego is not confirmed or validated. So it seeks this validation from experiences, from encounters with others, any number of things, in order to know itself as true. I really had I struggled with this, and then once I came out and started transitioning, it was a little easier, which is funny to me. It's a bit funny to me because it wasn't until I started to live my truth in a way that was authentic to me and left me feeling at peace that I started to understand this precept. So it's very interesting. But when we get upset, we tend to anchor in something that is connected to the past in some way, right? Like something happened in the past that we're using as a frame of reference for this particular moment. And are we truly seeing the full extent of that moment for what it actually is? Capital T truth, not subjective truth, right? And this is where it's interesting because this is where we get into forgiveness. And forgiveness is really just seeing the whole picture and the universal truth, the capital T truth, the objective truth of a situation or a person that allows us to process it in a way that is no longer about us. And that's really the most, that's what forgiveness is. And that's what the course is really about, bringing us towards, is this understanding, not just of what forgiveness is, but that forgiveness is something that we have access to in the present moment. This isn't to say, let's take all of the bad things that people do and make them okay because we're seeing something that's not actually there. No, I'll tell you actually how this played for me in one situation in particular, right? As a trans person, I haven't really experienced a ton of discrimination, misgendering, yes, people being just jerks in everyday encounters, sure, but nothing that was that left me questioning my spatial my sense of spatial safety. But I had an experience at a Walmart nearby here, so it was. For those of you that are from Ontario or Canada, people think Canada is this beacon of acceptance and all this stuff. Well, no, it is and it isn't, right? Every place is like that. It is and it isn't, right? So it's a lesson in letting go of idealization because these things happen all the time, everywhere. So it's really what you see. But I was in a washroom, and I came out of the washroom at a Walmart, and I was met with someone waiting for me outside the bathroom, who saw me go into the bathroom, waited for me to finish. And as I came out of the bathroom, made sure that I knew that I was in the wrong bathroom, and asked me if I knew that I was in the wrong bathroom. Which was really interesting to me, because, and I say it laughing because I'm just like, man, what a small world that person must live in, that the bathroom is like the biggest concern, and not the pandemic, and not whether people have food in their bellies, and not whether or not people can afford to survive another day. Like that's the hill that this person chose to die on that day, right? Which is super interesting to me because it's very, very filtered through a lens that's very hateful. And so after that encounter, they asked me, did you know that was actually the women's washroom? And with my mask on, my voice suddenly got deeper. A couple weekends ago, my voice just went and dropped, which is amazing. And I want that, but it makes it harder for people to read me, which can make for some interesting situations, to say the very least. But because I had my mask on, I guess this person read me as male, which is amazing. A part of me wanted to be like, oh, sweet. But the situation was out of, not a sweet situation. So as I walked away, I was just like, thanks, and took off. Like, I was like, I don't have time for this. This is garbage. And then, also, that there's an aspect of your personal safety that could be at risk. So I'm telling this story not to be like, let's dive into a lower vibe, folks. No. So while I was walking around the store after that encounter, I thought to myself, okay, let's use some of the things that I've taken from PTSD, help that I've gotten, and let's really analyze this, which is exactly what this lesson kind of is. I thought to myself, okay, my personal safety, how at risk is it? Okay, well, I have a car that I can drive. I can get in the car, and that's like a physical barrier around me. Okay, I'm at a store, and this person may have chosen to do that in the washroom because it was tucked away. Like, they might have chosen to do that because they knew that it wouldn't be out in the public, or more public facing in a way that would put their safety at risk for having that opinion. So it could have been that as well. But there was a certain, like, okay, physical safety, what's going on here? Just to make sure, because people choose violence all the time when it comes to trans people, right? Like, there's a law in the States, in particular, in different states. I think it's been overturned in some, but it's called the trans panic defense. For those of you that don't know, it basically means that if a man is being sexually intimate with a woman, and he learns that she is trans through some way or another and murders her, there is a lesser sentence. There is lighter sentencing, if any sentencing at all. Like, it's absolutely ridiculous. But that's sort of like, when we talk about rights and things, like, trans folks often the last priority. And you see it in the way that a lot of things are constructed. So in terms of safety, that is always a concern. And it just is what it is, right? We're not at a place collectively where we're really addressing that yet. Trans people are still, again, like the lowest common denominator, which is fine. But that's why doing things like this is important, because as a trans person, not only talking about those experiences, but for those who are in spiritual communities, especially, because where are a lot of the trans people in these communities, right? Can you name five? Name five. It's really hard, right? So this isn't about me talking about me. This is about me saying to trans folks watching, like, we belong here too, right? We belong here too. But this is also about, rambling a little bit here. Sorry about that. But walking around the store, I had a decision to make, right? I had a decision to make. Am I going to file this experience away as the first time that I've ever experienced this, where someone was so emboldened by their subjective truth that they tried to convince me of an objective reality that I did not deserve, that I deserved less, than, that I was unimportant, that there was something so disgusting about me to them that they had to tell me who I am, right? The disdain and contempt that person must live with as part of a system of self-hatred is astounding to me. And that's what I thought about as I was walking around the store. And I thought, I'm upset because I see something that isn't there. That this, if we were to apply this in that situation, what really came to mind was the fact that, I can see that this person, I can name them a bunch of different things. I can classify them a bunch of different things. I can respond to their hatred with more hatred, or I can respond to them seeing through the eyes of the heart and through the eyes of spirit, which is what the real story, of unfolding is about. When you start to understand your worth, that your voice counts for something, that your presence in places does matter, and that it's wanted, and that it's, you deserve to feel the sun, the warmth of the sun on your face, right? You deserve all of those things. And when you start to understand that story, you begin to see the dismantling of the structures that the ego used at one point to separate you from them, from that person. This is also where we get into the ability to forgive people who have really hurt us. I'm upset because I see something that is not there. This is like intense. This particular lesson for me proved to be very intense shadow work every time I faced it. And it's not that I would approach it with a sense of like, ugh, but it was just a sense of like, okay, this part is tough because we're getting to the root of things right away. This is addressing the causal the causes, right? Causative things, as opposed to the effects and, the outcomes and what would happen after something would happen. Like it's getting to the root of things. And that's what this is so beautiful for, specific to creativity too. Because once you start to address these things, the space that you carried all of this stuff around in is freed up. It's freed up, and it allows you to see things with the eyes of curiosity and vulnerability. You don't need to question, trust as much anymore, because you know that there's a trust that you just have access to, right? You don't have to do the dance of figuring it out, which is really and truly quite brilliant. Don't run to this place if it feels too tender. If there's a certain part of your emotions that you're processing relative to specific things, sit in that and be in that to feel them. This isn't about bypassing stuff and just saying, unimportant. This is about going to the root of things so that at one point, right, again, this is the perspective shift of forgiveness. Forgiveness is looking at that person who degraded you outside of a bathroom. Just to use that example, because I don't want to infer examples and use examples that are not consistent to what I've experienced, because then it's weird. Specific to this, but it's that moment where you can say to someone who does those things, even not to their face. I wouldn't recommend doing it, because a lot of people are not, they're so stuck in their ego, like, I have to be right about this, because if they're not right about that particular thing, specific to gender in particular, if they're not right about that, then that means that a lot of the things that they've built up, a lot of the structures and identity that they've built up around gender are wrong. And that can't be, because then that might make them queer. That might make them, a lot of family structures and familial structures would fall apart. A lot of their roles that they know would fall apart. These are all things that are associated with the ego, right? But it's the ability to pull back and say to that person in your mind or in your heart after it happens, like, I forgive you. I forgive you. I see the truth of who you are, and I see the truth of who I am. And I understand that that was not you acting in your highest good. And I understand that there's a bigger truth at play here. And I am not going to meet you in the vibration of the problem. I am going to meet you and see you in the vibration of the solution and who you actually are. I'm going to see you in that place. I'm going to see you from that place. You can join me there, but you don't have to. And that just opens you up. It opens you up, because then you're like, wow, it wasn't about me. It wasn't about my transness. It was about the disconnect that person experienced and needed to then pass off to somebody else, right? When you feel that discord and that low vibration, I just thought of like being at a cosmic drive-through, and instead of buying everyone drinks, you're just passing on pain, right? So you have to really, this is what transmutation is, right? Transmuting emotions. And that's when you get into things like emotional alchemy. These are the terms that are used in spiritual communities, and this is what they're referring to, right? So this lesson was a doozy to put it lightly. But we start to understand that our subjective truths are not objective realities. The other part that this can get into as well is where you get religions claiming objective truth as universal truth. and that giving them license to strip rights away and to strip experiences away. And namely, among all of them is the other people's humanity, is to take that away and turn them into something so vile and wrong that, for example, you might need to stop them in a bathroom or on their way out of one. Again, I'm using that example because it's very consistent with, and it allows this, it's a kind of golden thread through this. So it's not because I have any charge or hanging on to that at all. I mean, I'm laughing about it now because it seems funny to me that someone would be like that determined to know. Anyways, it's funny to me now. But we start to mistake subjective truths for universal truths. And that's where we can really start to listen to others about what we know to be true, as opposed to our own inner compass, which is our own heart, right? We can start to see the path as belonging to someone other than our heart. And to someone other than our heart. By that I mean, we can start to believe that the path before us is paved not by the places within us that glow from the heart space. We can believe that these things belong to other people, and the truths that we then have to, prove right. We get into this game of proving truths, and then we try to outprove one another. And that's where a lot of like war energy comes from, right? You have to prove something. So you go, you get defensive, and then you start to attack others. And this is a lesson that allows us to see that, others aren't necessarily attacking us in the way that we think. Certainly uncomfortably, certainly not okay. Like this isn't giving people license to do that. It's emplacing the things that happen in your life into a perspective that allows you to see with greater clarity. And that's important. And I think that this is a key component of creativity. This is a key component of seeing spiritually. This is freeing yourself, right? Talk about an aura cleanse. Like, just it clears it right up, because you're not carrying this extra garbage with you. And garbage is a charged word unto itself, but you're not carrying all of this extra ego stuff with you, because you realize you don't need it. You realize it doesn't help you. And you deserve to see through the eyes of spirit and to be at peace like that. You deserve those experiences. You deserve that. That's what you're here to feel. That's what you're here to experience. So I think that this is an intense lesson for sure, like I said, but a very important one. So a very long video for what's supposed to be these super short clips, but I really wanted to address this in a more spread out way for folks here. So I hope this was helpful, and I hope that it was useful. And as I often say, wherever this finds you on the time-space continuum, morning, afternoon, or night, I hope that it finds you well and surrounded by so much love and peace. So that's lesson number 6. Join me tomorrow for lesson number 7. Take care.